Dusty's Whimsical Journal Adventures. I am Zeus, Lord of the Sky, and I'm absolutely furious with the nonsense unfolding below me. As I unleash another thunderous roar, I watch that ridiculous Gabby Gwen prancing about in her latest outlandish ensemble. She's wearing a gown with sleeves that look like they've been attacked by a deranged seamstress. I believe she calls them flutterby sleeves. Ridiculous. In that overskirt. It's covered in so many appliques and dangly bits, it's a wonder she can move at all. Gwen twirls, her jingly bracelets and clanky earrings adding to the cacophony of my storm. Oh, darlings. She calls out to no one in particular. Isn't this just the most fabulous day for a journal reveal? I roll my eyes. As if anyone cares about her silly little book. Now, she continues, ignoring the wind that's whipping her tall updo and little whimsy veil. Let me show you my latest creation. I call it Whimsical Wanderings of a Fashionista. She dances over to a journal stand, her platform clogs somehow not causing her to trip over her own feet. First, let's talk about this divine cover. Gwen gushes. It's a collage of hand-torn mulberry paper and shades of lavender, peach, and mint. I've added some fussy cutouts of vintage teacups and sprinkled it with iridescent glitter. As she babbles on, I notice her pesky cats meow meow, moo moo, and meh meh, sneaking around her feet. Those troublemakers are probably planning to pounce on her ridiculous gown at any moment. The spine, Gwen continues, oblivious to the feline menace, is embellished with strings of tiny fabric scraps in complementary colors. Oh, and look at this darling braid I've made to wrap around the journal. It's a mix of art fibers, raffia, and fabric strips in shades of tangerine, fuchsia, and cornflower blue. Suddenly, a gust of wind blows open the journal, and Gwen squeals with delight. Ooh, let's take a peek inside, shall we? The first page is scented with lavender and features a posy of freesias, peonies, and wisteria. I've used handmade paper with deckled edges and added a frilly pocket made of wild weave cheesecloth. Inside, you'll find a mini scroll with a recipe for moonbeam tisane. Doesn't that sound simply magical? I grumble and send another bolt of lightning crackling across the sky. This woman's prattle is giving me a headache. Now, darlings, Gwen says, flipping to the next page, feast your eyes on this spread. I've created a pop-up garden scene with hand-drawn lace flowers and little fabric cutouts of butterflies. The background is a gelly print in shades of peridot and sage. And look at this adorable tag. It has a silly rhyming phrase, twirly whirly swirly. As she speaks, her mini pandas, Bam Bam and Boo Boo, waddle onto the scene, pawing at the dangling embellishments on her overskirt. Oh, you naughty little darlings. Gwen coos, completely misinterpreting their destructive intent. Do you want to see the journal too? Well, let me show you this fabulous page with a secret writing place. It's hidden behind this little fabric door with a pearl button closure. The door is made of Liberty-style floral print fabric in shades of blush and ecru. Suddenly, a whirlwind sweeps through, scattering Gwen's art supplies across the room. Oh my! She exclaims. It seems the weather is getting a bit frisky. But don't worry, my lovelies, I've prepared for such occasions. Let me just grab my parasol. It's adorned with tinkly bells and has pockets for storing extra journal supplies. As she fumbles with her parasol, I notice her neighbor, Pat the robot, approaching with a smirk on his metallic face. Well, Pat says in his tinny voice. If it isn't the fashion disaster herself. What's that you've got there? Another book of nonsense? Gwen turns, her face lighting up despite the insult. Pat, darling. How lovely to see you. Would you like to see my new journal? I've just been showing it off to my dear pandas. Pat's eyes flicker with disdain. I'd rather short-circuit my circuits than look at that monstrosity. Oh, you're such a tease. Gwen laughs, completely missing the sarcasm. Here, let me show you this delightful page. It's all about color combinations. I've used every shade under the rainbow, from amethyst to zephyr. As Gwen prattles on, I notice Dusty the magic broom hovering nearby, her twiggy hands fidgeting with her layers of mini overskirts. Gwen, dearie, Dusty interrupts in her squeaky voice, might I have a gander at your journal? I've been working on one myself, you know. All about Halloween. Gwen claps her hands in delight, her jingly bracelets adding to the noise. Of course, Dusty. How marvelous. Here, why don't you describe this page for us? Dusty takes the journal, her twiggy fingers careful not to damage the delicate pages. Well, I'll be a broomstick's bristle. This page is a real humdinger. It's got a fence page made of popsicle sticks painted in pastels, and behind it, there's a spooky scene with will-o-wisps floating about. The background is a watercolor wash in shades of midnight blue and deep purple. As Dusty speaks, I notice Goofy and Grubby, those bumbling cowboys, trying to sneak closer. They're both eyeing Dusty with lovesick expressions, clearly still convinced she's a sprite in disguise. And looky here, Dusty continues, there's a little pocket shaped like a jack-o'-lantern. Inside, there's a mini coloring book called Ghostly Giggles and Goblin Grins. Oh, and there's a shaker card filled with orange and black sequins shaped like tiny bats and cats. Gwen beams with pride. Oh, Dusty, you describe it so wonderfully. Now, let me show you this page about my favorite tea blends. I've used vellum overlays to create a layered effect, and there are little sachets filled with dried herbs attached to the page. Can you smell the peppermint and chamomile? As Gwen and Dusty continue their inane chatter, I notice the supernaturals gathering nearby. Batty Man is hanging upside down from a tree branch, while Latex Man is fiddling with a perplexing contraption made of sandalwood. I say, Batty Man calls out, his voice muffled by his wings, what's all this fuss about? Has Gwen created another fashion atrocity? Latex Man sniffs the air. I smell creativity and chaos. Must be one of Gwen's journals. Flighty Man swoops down, nearly knocking over Gwen's journal stand. Did someone say journal? I could give it a lovely flight through the clouds. Now, Gwen titters, let's not get carried away. This journal is staying firmly on the ground. But speaking of flying, let me show you this darling page about my dream of having a rooftop garden. I've used a mix of paper types, some mulberry, some handmade with pressed flowers, and even a sheet of clear acetate to create a glass greenhouse effect. As she flips through the pages, I can't help but notice the ridiculous amount of detail she's put into this frivolous book. There are pages with cascading waterfalls of fabric scraps, intricate paper weaving, and even a miniature puppet theater complete with tiny fabric curtains. Oh, and here's my favorite spread, Gwen gushes, pointing to a pair of pages covered in what looks like a mad seamstress's nightmare. It's all about sleeve styles. I've got samples of every type you can imagine: bishop, flutter, belle, priestess, Marie, layer, tier, puff, balloon, poet, lantern, tatter, mummy wrap, peasant, French, flutterby, Juliet, vine twirl, angel, cape, flounce, melon, virago, frill, pagoda, and flute. I groan and send another rumble of thunder across the sky. This woman's obsession with sleeves is truly baffling. Suddenly, Sheriff Trickster, that phantom troublemaker, appears in a puff of smoke. Well, what have we here? A fashion fiasco and a paper disaster all in one? Gwen, as usual, misses the insult entirely. Sheriff Trickster. How delightful of you to join us. Would you like to contribute a snarky rhyme to my journal? I have a whole page dedicated to silly wordplay. Trickster's ghostly eyes narrow. How about this? There once was a girl named Gwen, whose fashion sense was a 10. On a scale of 0 to 100. Ha! Oh, marvelous. Gwen claps, jotting down the rhyme in her journal. You're such a clever wordsmith, Sheriff. As the wind picks up again, scattering loose papers and ribbons, I notice John Candy the Candy Meister approaching, his pockets bulging with sweets. Did someone say something about a journal? He asks, unwrapping a lollipop. I've got some candy wrappers that would make excellent ephemera for your pages, Gwen. John, you absolute darling. Gwen exclaims. That would be perfect for my sweet memories page. I've already got a collage of vintage candy advertisements and a pocket full of recipe cards for homemade treats. As Gwen and John discuss the merits of various candy wrapper designs, I notice the gossipy cats slinking around the edges of the gathering, their tails twitching as they eavesdrop. Did you hear? One cat whispers to another. Gwen's planning a float parade themed around her journal. No. Gasps the other cat. Will there be fish-shaped floats? I roll my eyes at their inane chatter. A parade? For a journal? This is getting out of hand. Suddenly, Jeff La Jellyfish floats by, his translucent body glowing in various neon shades. Gwen, darling, he bubbles, your journal is simply luminous. Have you considered adding some bioluminescent ink to really make it pop? Oh, Jeff. Gwen squeals. What a fabulous idea. I could use it for my underwater dreamscape page. I've already got some iridescent fish scale stickers and seaweed textured paper. As the chatter continues and the wind howls, I notice the clingy cloud clusters gathering around the group, their misty tendrils reaching out to touch Gwen's elaborate hairdo and the pages of her journal. Now, Gwen tuts at the clouds, don't go getting my pages all damp. I've used water-soluble inks for some of these drawings. The clouds seem to pout, if clouds can pout, and drift back a bit. Oh, look! Gwen exclaims, flipping to another page. Here's my quantum quandary spread. I've got little flip books with paradoxical illustrations and a pocket full of cards with perplexing questions like if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? The chatty quantum professor, who had been lurking nearby, perks up at this. Ah, but have you considered the many worlds interpretation? In one universe, the tree makes a sound, in another, it doesn't. How fascinating. Gwen claps. I must add that to my journal. Oh, and look at this page about my favorite fashion styles. I've got swatches and sketches for everything from plaid fad to shabby chic, Maury K to gothic Lolita. As Gwen continues to flip through her journal, showing off pages dedicated to everything from tea parties to topiary gardens, I can't help but marvel at the sheer absurdity of it all. This woman has created an entire world within the pages of a book, filled with whimsy, color, and an alarming amount of frills. But as ridiculous as it all is, I must admit, there's something intriguing about her boundless creativity and enthusiasm. Not that I'd ever tell her that, of course. I have a reputation to maintain, after all. So instead, I send another crack of lightning across the sky, causing Gwen to jump and clutch her precious journal. Oh my! She exclaims. It seems Zeus is getting a bit grumpy. Perhaps we should continue this journal showcase indoors. Who's up for some moonbeam tisane and whimsical wanderer cookies? With a final rumble of thunder, I turn my attention elsewhere, leaving Gwen and her friends to their fanciful journal adventure.